There's always talk in any field about getting back to your roots. Well, I'm not actually, it's not like I'm painting the Mona Lisa or doing a Spielberg level movie, but, I just decided to take a page from that book. I think I have in the past, but now all my videos are deleted, pretty much. But 2017, when I started making videos and uploading them really in any form, I started much like this, laying in a bed, messy haired, in the early morning to maybe late night sometimes, but very often it was between 3 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. I was dreading going to school at that point, 18 or so. There are some differences. I needed glasses back then, but I refused to wear them. I didn't quite grow my beard to this length before. Though that was because I still had some amount of self-respect. I wasn't prematurely balding, but still, nonetheless. I had something written out. Probably won't be able to read it, but and also I'm in a hotel room right now because my family's on vacation. But I wrote this out: crappy versus shitty, shitty versus preventable, preventable versus permissible. And why I wrote that out is I think there are important distinctions for our current world. That on one thing, whenever something that's upsetting in any way, now I don't want to say whatever, it's not whatever, but often rather, when something's upsetting in any way nowadays, we immediately jump to action, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. It's at least created out of good intentions for the most part. I mean, I'm sure there are, as there in any big field thing, people with less than good intentions, but largely it's pushed by good intentions, I do believe. But that doesn't necessarily mean it itself is good. And I think we need to create these distinctions in our minds. One, crappy versus shitty. And these are of course, to some degree, personal, what's the word? Personal opinions, which to me I think is kind of the point, is that, you can only judge certain things based on personal opinion that aren't clearly illegal, and we can't legalize everything. But crappy versus shitty. I'll give you an example. Just, I do crappy things a lot. For example, your friend is stressed. He's not or she's not going through complete hell, but they're stressed and they just want to talk for a bit. But you decide to blow them off, whether that be text or call or what. That's crappy. Shitty would be if that person was in real desperate need to talk, and they made it clear, and you realized that, and you decided, nah, I'm not gonna do it. Preventable things, i.e., things that we can at all stop in any form, have to do with things that are like in the realm of clearly bad, but not in the realm of 100% you should, go to prison type things, or even jail. And to some degree, again, that's a matter of opinion, but we have to try to draw the line somewhere. But if in that same area, I tried to manipulate my friend to and it's not really preventable on this personal scale, but I guess maybe I'll change it to a workplace. If I had a work friend and I was trying to manipulate them to hang out with me or do that, whatever, that's preventable. We can put things in place to stop that. Company policy is the major thing. It's the law. That's a type of that's not a law, but it's a kind of type of law that can prevent and like. But the thing is, that would be up to the company. I think that's important because I think even though it sounds shitty, I think it is important that they could find work somewhere and maybe change the behavior, but maybe not. But I think is even though it's kind of sounds shitty, I think that is an important thing because they shouldn't be canceled out of life for being really, really shitty. Permissible, that comes to just clearly illegal things. If I wasn't just manipulating my friend to hang out with me or do this or whatever, I was forcing him to do something. Clearly forcing him at work. That would be not permissible. And I think we in our haste to be so activist focused nowadays, whereby we just won't draw the line. We'll just say anything that feels bad is bad. Not just somewhat bad, but entirely bad. I don't think that's good, personally. Not just because, not just because, some people that might be more innocent than others um, get, harmed in some way. But because it just doesn't really fix anything. It fixes problems as they happen to some degree, but there's no real way to make certain things like that illegal, or at least there shouldn't be. To stop problems like that happening in the future that are shitty, It's not to completely cancel those people. It's to enforce a society whereby people who would do shitty things feel really shitty about doing them, and that makes them less likely to happen. That's the only real way to stop them. I mean, not stop them, but lessen them. I mean, even to some degree, laws function that way. Because to some degree, there are certain laws where you likely won't ever, ever get caught doing them. Like, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, just blowing through a red light when there's no cops around and there's no camera on the thing. Like, most of the time, you're not going to get caught doing that. But I think a majority of people would feel shitty about doing it because we've created a law that puts that in place. We can't always make laws, but we can kind of create pseudo laws, societal laws that make people feel shitty for doing things. And the more shitty we make people feel doing things, the less likely they're going to happen. And that's the more severe the issue, the more clear we should make the punishment. I'm sorry. But now we've just drawn, even unclear lines. And, and of course, I know the examples I was giving, only really directly affects one area. One, it's hard for me to talk about the common problems because I'm just I come from a family that doesn't really talk about stuff like that. So it's just a little uncomfortable for me to openly talk about stuff like that. But I'll just say, in general, the rules still apply. I guess I'll just say, like, a 40 to 50 something year old guy going to a bar for the express intention of hitting on and potentially sleeping with a naive younger woman. That's really shitty. Like, really shitty. Like, among the shittiest legal things you can do. However, I don't think he should get canceled for it, personally. And that's the distinction. Because when there is no clear... He should, sure, get ostracized from his friends and people, to the point where maybe he'll reconsider his actions. Maybe even being alienated. Just arguably completely. Maybe hopefully reconsider his actions and change, for the betterment of not only others but himself. But I don't think he should be canceled for doing it. And again, that's the thing, because, like, anything that's not clearly illegal shouldn't be punishable equally. I mean, relatively. I mean, I know he's not going to jail for it, but it shouldn't be, like, on the same kind of similar level as being a criminal. It just shouldn't. Just because something's shitty does not make it impermissible. And yeah, we're forgetting that, or at the very least, not, what's the word? Not appreciating that. Or at least not everybody, but a large part of the current establishment. And I'm not saying liberal establishment, conservative establishment, whatever. I'm just talking general American, I guess, specifically, because I'm American, but I think maybe to some extent the Western countries in general, establishment. And yeah, I think that should be changed, personally. Um, and again, not only because it's wrong to punish people on that level for doing these not illegal things. Again, it doesn't, in my opinion, change anything. Because people would just get, is disillusioned the right word? I don't feel like looking it up, but for lack of a better word, disillusioned. They don't care anymore after that. Like if they just feel, you know what, F it, I'm just gonna do whatever because clearly everything is, and whether that's true or not, that's how people start feeling. I'm just gonna not try. I'm gonna just be a completely shitty person. I'm gonna just do shitty things all around and just be shitty to everybody because clearly, it doesn't matter what I do. And I don't know if I was quite to that level, but I was close to that level when I was a couple of years ago. I don't know when this current mentality really became fundamentally, paramount, but I'd say around my later high school years, I was acting shitty to everybody because I just felt like, you know what, no matter what I do, people are going to think I'm shitty for having these opinions. So I'm just going to be completely shitty. I'm not even going to, I'm not saying, again, I'm not saying that excuses what I did. That's not my point at all. It's the opposite of my point, in fact. But just because something's inexcusable, going by the same, just this because this doesn't mean this, just because it was inexcusable doesn't mean it wasn't preventable. And I think if the establishment, and the establishment does not necessarily equal the majority of people. I think in high school, though, it's more likely to because, teachers tend to, students tend to be, really in the times by nature. And because of that, teachers tend to follow along. And it just kind of, and that's the thing, yeah, I would just be shitty. And I cringe. I do. I cringe looking back at how I acted. Part of me was even honestly cringing then. I don't know consciously, but at least unconsciously. Um, but still, nonetheless, it happened. It all happened. And I can't change what already happened. Um, But nonetheless, I think if we wanted to, we could change a lot of this. That's my point of view.